in here. Anyway, it's Saturday evening, between dinner. I just got done working out. Well, I worked out, and then I worked out my son and our visiting exchange student who showed up out of shape. So my mission is to get him in shape. It's so they had, my son is 10, and so we had and so I kind of put them head to head on different competitions. And so we started out with a walk around the property, and their drive was about a quarter of a mile, and there's a pretty significant hill, probably about a 80-meter long hill that's pretty steep on one side and more of a gentle sloping hill on the other side. So I had them start out with a weighted carry. And so one guy, Terry, was carrying a 75-pound medicine ball for a quarter mile, and my son, I had him carry a 30-pound sandbag for a quarter of a mile, up and down the hill. And then we went on to some backward sprints up the hill, several of those, and then we did some broad jumps, jump up and down up the hill, and then we did some bear crawls up the hill, and then I had them finish out. We just each run a mile while the other one was rowing, so they had a little competition of who could run the mile the fastest. So it was a lot of fun. My workout was leg workout, so I just a bunch of 20 rep squats, high rep squats, which they're always fun to do, right? For anybody who's done those 20 rep squats, they're kind of a challenge. So, all right, well, let me just say hi to everybody and answer some questions. Hopefully you guys are doing well and have a nice, it's kind of nice. We got Weave 8060 from Dallas and Nancy from Houston. So a couple Texans in the house. Good for you guys. Like I said, I spent time, I grew up near Houston, and for Nancy, I grew up in Lake Jackson, which, probably know it's just down. Just take, was it 288 down south towards Surfside Beach or Freeport, and you hit Lake Jackson. And then, of course, did my medical residency in Galveston, UTMB down there. So I'm very familiar with the Houston area. In fact, my mom and my sister currently live in Spring, Texas. So I was actually in Houston back in August, so just a couple months ago, nice and hot then. So, all right, Annabelle, the Happy Carnivore. I like that name, the Happy Carnivore. Hi, Dr. Shawn. It's 100 days of carnivore for me. Thank you for your encouragement. Well, I hope it goes well for you. Good luck to you. Ivana Disatov, hi from Massachusetts. I've only been to Boston one time for an orthopedic conference many years ago. Tracy Kinzel's in the house tonight. Again, another Texan, Corpus Christi. We've got a lot of Texans in here. Andrea Cantrell from Asheville, North Carolina. Hope you're starting to heal. Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, I'm like inch by inch getting better. I mean, I got so many people have reached out to offer me various treatment options, and so I'm sure I'll tell you the one thing that was a little frustrating, because I was kind of demonstrating to my son and Terry how to jump up, and what I wanted to do for the broad jump. So a series of plyometric type jumps, and when I'm doing that, I can just feel it. I can't quite do this. Sore. It causes pain going down my arm. So it's a little frustrating that I can still train, and I still do, and there's a little pain, like I can squat and all that stuff, but I couldn't do the more explosive stuff, which is something I think is important. Even though I'm closing in on 60 years of age, it's important to maintain that explosive capacity. This is I do think that's an important part of your physicality that you should maintain. It's pretty easy to be strong. It's pretty easy to run and all that stuff, but being able to sprint and jump and accelerate as an older person is challenging. And if and most people lose that. I mean, to be fair, most people have lost that capacity, but it's not something that needs to be lost. It's something that you lose because it's one of those use it or lose it type of things. And so, because you think about how many 50, 60-year-olds you see out sprinting or, jumping or things like that, they just don't do it, right? So as they stop doing it, they lose the capacity to do it. Hi from Brazil, says Carnivore Life. Well, hello back. Hopefully things are well. And Annabelle is saying good morning from Australia. Hey, Dr. Baker, says hope for all the level. Doc, have you read any of Dr. Barry Sears' books on inflammation and omega-3 fish oil supplementation? I haven't read any of Dr. Sears' books, honestly. I mean, but interestingly, this is kind of a funny story. When I lived in California, he has an office in San Clemente, and it's shared by, I think, his sons, the Sears brothers, I guess, and my son went to them as his primary care physician. So my son was, being seen by some of the Sears people. So You're building strong young men. Kudos, absolutely. Yeah, my son doesn't have a choice. He's like, he was kind of whining. I said, nope, don't have a choice. Suck it up. So he knows better now because I've kind of laid the law down. It's like, look, this is an important thing. You can go out and play and goof around. That's fine, but let's take care of that. Let's take care of business first, and then you can have fun. But let's make sure you take care of fun. Take care of this stuff. Lauren Lewis is hi from California. Like I said, it's spent about the last 5 years there. I'll be back. I have to go back to LA, or not LA, Orange County for a quick little in and out 1 day thing on I think 26th of October. I'm heading down for that. I got a busy, couple more weeks and then busy travel, a little quick to California, then 5 days in Germany, then back for about 4 or 5 days and out to Florida for a couple of days and then back for a day or two, then out to Egypt for I think 10, 11 days and then back out to Austin, Texas for a deal there. So Roxanne, I had an amazing ribeye today from the meat shop outside of San Antonio. Forgot how good a ribeye can be. Yeah, ribeyes are great, aren't they? They're so good. How you like me now? I'm a former raw vegan. Now I'm carnivore and down 165 pounds. Well, good for you. Glad to hear that, and hopefully you continue to have success. I'm in Chicago, my kind of town, says I hope. That sounds like kind of sound like a little Frank Sinatra song, isn't that? Okay, so Annabelle the Happy Carnivore says, I was starving before carnivore. 28, 29 days of fasting in less than 3 months. Carnivore has healed my mind. Gosh, it's tough to be 28, 29 days of fasting. I mean, and that reminds me, you guys, maybe you watched my video from earlier today. I think the one I put up first thing this morning. I interviewed this guy. He's 600 pounds at age 14. I mean, it just absolutely blew my mind when he said that. I was like, wait, what? 600 pounds at 14? Where does that come from? And he was literally like, putting back like 20 Coca-Colas a day. It was mostly, most of that weight he believes was basically Coke. I mean, he ate junk food, but it was Coke, soda pop. And, it's kind of interesting for the people that say sugar is not a problem and it's all seed oils. I mean, there's no seed oils in Coke, and he was pounding these things down, right? So, just how many calories was he over consuming in Coca-Cola, and it's so addictive. And he could never free himself from that addiction until he went carnivore. He went on a bodybuilding diet. It was all lean protein and protein energy ratio friendly, chicken breast. And, he was talking about egg white omelets and blah, blah, blah. And he just could not get over his sugar addiction while he was doing that. But when he went carnivore, first time in his life, now lost 300 pounds in 9 months. Amazing. Anyway, great interview. I hope you guys listen to it. It'll be up sometime probably later this week or this coming week on the Dr. Shawn Baker podcast channel or the Revero channel for you guys. Probably the easiest way to find it is just type in Revero into the thing. Jonathan Starling's another San Antonio. Trappers Point Camp. Is Element okay with carnivore? It does have a carb in it. It can be. And I think there's a plain unflavored one, which probably is I think it's carb free if I'm not mistaken. But, again, it isn't necessarily carbohydrates per se. I think it's foods that contain the carbohydrates where people have sensitivity to. Eggs have carbohydrates in them. Half a gram per egg. So it's not like it's zero carb. If you have any dairy's going to have a little bit of carbohydrates. More of a animal product versus non-animal product type of thing. And again, don't get too caught up in the religiosity of the whole thing. Think about what's it doing to my body. Is it, what are the benefits versus the negatives? And, for some people, Element is a bad idea because it has some flavoring. If you put it with stevia, it can trigger intense addictive type behavior. So for those people, no, it's not a good idea. But it just depends on what you're dealing with. So I don't know enough to, kind of speak intelligently about your particular situation. Tao, I think. Hi from Spain. Yeah, I'd love to get down to Spain sometime. Never been there. I've been close. I was up in the south western portion of France, down in what's called the Pays Basque, or the Basque Country, Biarritz, and places like that. Narbonne, I think. So I was close, and we were going to try to get down to San Sebastian. We have not done it, but soon we'll get to Spain and check it out. Okay, Joanne, hello. No, when you leave a live, you catch another live. Shame in me. Hi from Port Alberni, British Columbia, Canada. Well, I'll turn my head and look at you there. That way is British Columbia for me. I'm looking at my backyard. There's Cascade Mountains in front of me. So, and I'm west of that, out here, kind of near the Seattle area. So, think about maybe going. I don't know where Port Alberni is, but we may spend a little time in February up in BC. Um, Tom Taylor says hi, and Nancy's whoop whoop about Spring, Texas. Hello from Cleburne, Texas, says James Lewis, another Texan. Wow, we got a lot. Patrick Lachance, I'm in Okinawa, Japan. I'm sure you can only find purple potatoes there, right? Is that the, is that the blue zone sort of nonsense, Calgary, Canada, the level. So we got a lot of Texans and Canadians in the house tonight. I've been to Calgary once. I competed at the Highland Games. In fact, no, I didn't win there. I competed at the Highland Games World Championships in Calgary, a Masters World Championship. I should put the modifier on there, and I took third. I was a little bummed because the year before I had won the World Championship, and then I took third up in Calgary. But I did go up to Canmore the next day and competed at a Highland Games in Canmore, which is just a beautiful little town. I'm sure you've been there, but it's a neat little place, and won a few. I think I won a couple $100 as a competitor in that little Highland Games contest. BJ Penn, 1989. Brownsville, Texas. Another one down there at the southern tip of Texas, down there on the Mexican border. Yeah, been to Brownsville. So, Louisville, Kentucky, says Garnetta Smith. I've not spent a lot of time in Kentucky, been through it a few times. And Dr. Iron Mom from Washington State, and I'm a fellow Washingtonian right now, so I'm here in Snohomish. I wonder where you're at. Baddest Cat says hello. Unruly Peasant says I live in Spring, Texas. Well, maybe you live out near my mom and my sister. They're in, I don't know, Legends Run or something. I can't remember the neighborhood. It's something, somewhere out there. Legend of the Fall or Legend Falls, Legends Run or something. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. It's in that neighborhood area, but maybe it's not that exact one. But I remember that. It was off of Rafer Sawdust Road. I remember that was the road they were on. Ryan, I know. Dr. B, you're the man from Fort Worth, Texas. Golly, we got a lot of Texans in here tonight. Good for you guys. Brick Isaac, hi from Greenville, South Carolina. Nice. Day by day healing. Yep, that's what it is. Hi from Virginia Beach. Nice. So LCVB. Carnivore Ron, thanks for everything you do. A1 Meat Eater Kid Oregon here, sprinting for 8 weeks. Awesome. 15 months of good old life. Thanks to Dr. Baker, 67-year-olds, but feel better in 37. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I've been sprinting. Can I tell you, I've been sprinting for years and years and years. I've done sprints since I was probably, I've never stopped. For playing professional rugby in my 20s to everything else, I've always done sprinting. So, and I still do it. So it's good stuff to do. Although right now I can't. I can sprint on the bike, which I'm doing. I did. In fact, I did 20-second bike sprints tonight on the little Airdyne X bike. And that was a good little workout. Stacy Webster from Briar, Washington. We're neighbors. I'm planning on connecting with Revero. Awesome. Sending you hugs for your neck. Well, thank you. James Lewis, for traveling, would you recommend the X3 system? Yeah, it's got a lot to recommend it for traveling for sure. It fits in a suitcase pretty nicely. You can bring hundreds of pounds of resistance with you in a suitcase. With something that only weighs probably less than 10 pounds. So, yeah, it's a good thing to travel. We got Not That Anna from Toledo. Good to see Anna. Joseph Burbo, we're living in some interesting times. Yes, we are. Interesting, it is. Smoked and slammed. Eddie Bravo and Joe Rogan was talking about a guy he got in contact with that stretches people out instead of surgery. Houston here. All right. Doctor started lifting weights. This is Yay07 007. Is it normal to have shaky, twitching legs after leg day? Yeah, certainly. If you have a tough leg workout, yeah, your legs can be twitching afterwards and shaky and weak, and sometimes you fall down if you train hard enough, or they can be so sore you can't walk. Depending on the intensity that you've done that. I've done and seen all the above. Shane Bratz, from rural Minnesota. I had a ribeye for dinner. Awesome, man. I've got a New York strip coming for dinner here in a little bit. All right, we got our first little super chat question from Jonathan Stallings. Okay. Wow. Any experience how post-testicular lymphoma chemoradiation responded to carnivore past 5 years, but metabolic syndrome developed related to primary hypogonadism? Thanks for the advice. That particular unique situation, I can't say that I can say for sure that I've seen that sort of particular situation. However, what I will say with regard to chemo and whatnot, just there's been a lot of people on carnivore that have, for whatever reason, been going through cancer treatment. Maybe they adopt carnivore after their diagnosis, and universally, well, I shouldn't say universally, but at least everyone I've heard of that has talked about this has said that the chemo, the treatment has been tolerated much better. Even their physicians would comment on that. Now, as far as the metabolic syndrome that has developed post radiation wise, if you have primary hypogonadism, that's one of the, I'm not generally, let me just put this out there. I'm not a big advocate of TRT for most people, particularly those that have it secondary to, say, just lifestyle directed metabolic syndrome, because most of the time the lower testosterone, or the lower, clinically, I should be more precise with my wording here, the lower testosterone function, not necessarily level, but less testosterone function, is often a consequence of the poor lifestyle, the obesity, the hyperinsulinemia, the metabolic syndrome, the insulin resistance, so on and so forth. And so if you thoroughly resolve that, then your testosterone function often will recover and will sort of obviate the need for going on replacement hormone, because it has some definite negatives associated with it. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, it saved me and all that stuff, but honestly, I think it is just a Band-Aid. Now, in your situation, if you had primary hypogonadism where they've actually destroyed the testicle, right, because of, the testicular lymphoma, that you just don't have the tissue to produce it, then you're going to need replacement, obviously. And so I think that I think carnivore has the potential to be beneficial. I do. I think diet, and this is kind of a blanket answer for me. I mean, I will certainly be the first one to say I don't know it all. I never talk in absolutes, rarely. I never talk in, never or all the time. But what I will say is I believe that proper, good nutrition is generally beneficial in just about any situation you can think of. And so this is how it would fall in that category. And I think I would try it. I mean, I would try it for, 3 months or so and see how it impacts you. And it may have a lot of effects on people, because some people do it for a certain reason, and it may not directly or completely, sort of mitigate that particular issue, but it tends to have just a generally positive effect across the board, whether it be on mental health or energy levels, or mental clarity, or skin health, or on and on. You can just name digestive health. We hear people all the time talking about, I went on carnivore for this reason, but then these other 20 things got better. So it's probably worth, Jonathan, it's probably worth trying for a little while. All right, I've got an A20. I don't know if that's an Australian 20. What is that? Australian, maybe. Low carb, low drama. I like the name on that one. My friend lost 22 pounds on low carb for a year. Started keto 7 weeks ago. His blood work 7 weeks ago, and now fasting triglycerides are 141. What is it? To 416? Is that? Oh, sorry, a bird just flew by me. So triglycerides, I'm assuming you're going from 141 to 461, maybe. ALT from 56 to 83, GGT from 67 to 118, fasting insulin 33 to 30, hemoglobin A1C 5.3 to 5.2. Thoughts? Well, I mean, again, anytime I get a snippet of somebody's lab, it's really hard to say, well, what's the context here, So things that may lead to higher triglycerides potentially would be, how fasting was his fasting triglycerides? Was it 8 hours? Was it 10 hours? Was it 12 hours? Was it 18 hours? What was he eating? What was his last meal? I will maintain that if you eat a big old ribeye steak, 12 ounce, 16 ounce ribeye steak, 8 p.m., you get up the next morning, 12, 8 a.m., draw your bloods, I would say you're still not fasting. I would argue you're still processing and you're in a postprandial state. So, I mean, that's something to consider. The elevations in liver enzymes. Now, it could be related to, maybe there's something going on with the liver. Maybe there could be some development of things like fatty liver disease. It could be, however, that um, they are maybe they were exercising and they just increase their exercise, and so they have a little bit of stress. And we know that, for instance, liver enzymes can be bumped up for as long as a week after any particularly hard bout of exercise. So there's again, without knowing all the details on this particular person, the fasting insulin 33 to 30 is kind of insignificant different. There's still, from what I can see, with a high fasting insulin above 30, they're probably metabolically unhealthy, would be my guess. I mean, they said they lost 22 pounds low carb. I don't know where they're at. Maybe they're still overweight, maybe they're still, you know, unhealthy metabolically. That would be my guess, just looking at a higher fasting insulin. I may be wrong on that, but I mean, feel free to correct me if that's a situation. But I would here's what I would look at instead of getting too concerned about individual lab numbers. And again, this is assuming I'm making assumptions, maybe wrong, but if this person is still big old belly and just not physically fit, that's where I put my effort. I would just like, let's get rid of that belly. Let's get that belly down. Let's get lean. Everything else you can say, just put it on the back burner. You don't need to worry about it until you can get that belly down there. And then if you still have the issues, which you probably won't, but if you still do, then there are things to look at individually. Now, again, it's not to ignore like a heart attack or something like that, but I'm just saying, we often lose the forest for the trees. We're focusing microscopically on a lab value or a set of lab values, which, again, they may have a conditional sort of attachment to them. What's the context here? Whereas, a big belly is, there's really never a situation when a big belly, I mean, that's not a pregnancy, I guess, but there's never a situation where a big old belly is going to be a benefit. And I don't know this person. I don't know where they're, what, if they lost 22 pounds or at least 22 pounds overweight, I assume, and maybe more. Maybe they're 100 pounds overweight, maybe they're 50 pounds overweight. So that is, what I would, again, that's what I would kind of consider is let's work on overall, like long-term effects. Because remember, your labs can change in a day, right? So did that mean you got healthier in one day? No, right? If my glucose when I woke up this morning is 80, and I think, oh, I'm really healthy. And then the next day I wake up and it's 112. Does that mean I'm suddenly not healthy in one day? No, just meant a lab shifted a little bit for some reason. So I would say, but if I wake up every morning with a big old belly, then I'm pretty unhealthy. But if I wake up every day with a flat stomach, then I'm probably pretty healthy. So focus on the long term, the long term things that are like, hey, people that are generally lean and fit are generally doing the right things and generally healthy. People that aren't are generally, got work to do. All right. So thank you for that. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. We got just another question here. So another super chat question. This one's from Frigno Freedom. Oh, we talked the other day. I think I remember that name. Carnivore living definitely reverse low T for me, and I'm so happy to not need a doctor's permission to be the best version of myself. TRT was not the answer. Thank you for all you, Dr. Baker. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because people will often, like sometimes I'll put up a shirtless selfie when I'm working out. I got a big pump, it's kind of funny. You get a big gym pump and you get the right lighting and you look pretty jacked and everybody's accusing you of taking TRT and steroids. And I've never done that stuff. I've never had a desire to do that. I've always been kind of anti that stuff. I've always kind of competed when I was powerlifting. I always competed in drug tested and, quote unquote, supposedly drug free competition. There were guys that cheated and got caught, but I mean, I've always been, pretty adamant about that. There's so many people that do it now. It's like all these kids are doing it and everybody's taking drugs. And it's just like, so there's just kind of like they think everybody else is doing it. But you can actually be pretty darn good shape and have a decent amount of muscle and have a pretty decent physique without resorting to drugs. I mean, I absolutely know you can because I've done it. And I know other people that have done it that are in far better shape than I am. And so, at least, aesthetically looking. So it's an important thing. But thanks for Do that. I'm glad you're doing better. That's good. Yeah, like I said, if it came down, like people are like, oh, I can't wait till I'm 40 because I'm going to go on TRT. I'm like, why? Why would you wish for that? Why? It's like I get to be on drugs. No, I mean, drugs always have side effects. There's always a negative associated with them. Now, the benefits may arguably outweigh the negatives, but there's always some sort of negative. And the best answer is just to maintain your own normal hormone levels or function, I should say, to be more precise with that. Function. Remember, there's an interaction between the testosterone circulating hormone, whether it's free or bound, to sex hormone binding globulin, and the receptor. So the receptor has to be at a certain level to facilitate, the number. So some people might have a lower circulating number, but they have more available receptors, so they don't need as much. Whereas other people may have really high testosterone, but still have issues with hypotestosterone, sort of poor testosterone, poor testosterone function because they just don't have enough receptor sensitivity. All right, we got another A10. I guess it's Australian drama again. Okay, he is no hypertension. He has a beer belly. Well, there you go. In non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, he's short about 70 pounds of loose. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, he's just got to work on that. He's got to work on his beer belly. I mean, he's got to lose the weight. This is what I tell all these people that have to lose weight. I do one-on-one consultation with people, but I always talk about we got to get a relationship with food that makes sense. You got to you nobody's going to get you know fat eating like meat or even vegetables. This is not going to happen, right? If that's what you eat, it's almost impossible. I mean, it's not to say it couldn't happen, but it's almost no one has that happen to them. It's usually fast food, potato chips, candies, cookies, sweets, you name it. So that's what's happening. And so, how do you get to where you don't crave that stuff all the time? How you don't, how you don't go backwards? And that's got to be job one. And so, I think it's figure out what to do when there's cravings. Number one, have a plan in place. Failure to plan is planning to fail, right? So plan A, plan B, plan C. What's going to happen if cravings come? Because they're going to come. And this is what I tell people, eat enough meat so you don't want a damn cupcake. Eat meat like it's your job, and it is your job to get over this food addiction. And once you've done that, once you've accomplished that, whether it be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is, a year in some cases, then you can start to say, okay, let me start dialing things a little bit. Let me play with fat and protein and things like that. And what can I add something in that's safe for me? I don't know. But anyway, that's where I'd start. And then honestly, for most people, I think resistance training is great. I think exercise is great. I'm always doing this, I'm always encouraging it and promoting it and doing it myself. But I think number one is just stop being sedentary. That's going to get you uh, much of your gains are come from just not sitting around all the time. Get up, move. If you got a job, a desk job, get a standing desk. They won't buy you a standing desk. You can't afford a standing desk. If you don't have a standing desk, get a box and sit your computer on the box. Just so you can stand an hour a day, stand 2 hours a day, whatever. Just gradually do that. Think about it. If I'm sitting, could I be standing? If I'm standing, could I be walking, right? Could I be on a phone call? Can I take a phone call and go for a walk? That's the type of stuff that um, that's a mindset you want to have. And it's honestly, it's just as easy to stand throughout the day as it is to sit. In fact, a lot of people feel better when they stand at the end of the day than sitting all day. You sit all day, you get up, you're like, oh my God, everything's stiff and sore and hurts, and you just don't want that. So anyway, let me go to the next question here. Oh, wait, we got a Pensacola Inn, Natalie Rand and Milton Bates from Toronto. Been there once, middle of winter, underground most of the time. So we got Zach Blue from Melbourne, Australia. Love your work. I'm sure you're heartbroken about Dan Andrews being ousted as your your beloved leader. I think. Maybe correct me. Maybe not. Maybe one of the ones that loved the guy. But I don't know. For some reason, that guy rubbed me the wrong way. I don't even live there. But I don't know what you think. I know he locked everybody down. I felt bad about that. Right unknown. Texas love, Doc. Awesome. We got Smoked and Slam saying yeehaw. Gary Green saying currywurst. Interesting that. I loved your diet cult videos, LOL. But yeah, I had some fun with those little goofy videos. Some people got offended. Oh, we can't take you seriously. And I was like, man, get over it. I'm just having some fun. There's a few guys, made that little goofy little vegan lady, Frangie, whatever. Hello, and most people thought it was hilarious. I was cracking up doing that one, just having fun with that. And a couple of guys like, "How dare you dress up? That's not masculine." And it's like, God, come on, get over yourself, guys. I mean, it's just funny. All right, we got looks like another. Let's see, another question here, another $20 question, I guess. Carnivore Today Carnivore Today, I guess is his name. It says Adam here, associate producer for the Carnivore Diet documentary. Oh, okay. Where can we learn about and support the clinical trials you'll be conducting, possibly of any being completed soon enough to be included in the documentary? Well, I don't know when your documentary is going to be done. So, I mean, I know you guys have some time. So, this is so there's a couple that are kind of being considered, talked about. I know our company Revero, once we're launched, we're collecting data and we'll be publishing that. I'm not sure the timeline of that. Probably, I would think that's going to be in the spring, probably by the time we have the data, enough data to do something like that. I know there was a study. Well, this was a real frustration I had. There's the meat industry, literally the meat industry, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the Beef Checkoff, the Beef Promotions Operation Committee. I put together a research team, good researchers, guys that are well published. They have their own research lab. I got some producers that were willing to supply meat for that to do a carnivore study, and they were going to fund that. We were requesting funding budget through via something called the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, for which they've allocated funds before, and they get something like, I think they had something like $40 million of revenue that they got through the beef checkoff that they're supposed to spend on their beef promotion. And they do research and they do beef, it's what's for dinner and all that stuff, but they're pretty anemic, honestly. They don't do a very good job promoting beef, in my view. I think I do a better job, quite honestly. I don't have a $40 million budget. I got basically a zero budget. And we went to them, made a presentation, excellent research, is good, well put together. It was a diabetes trial, 50 diabetics, on each wing, basically a case control, control cohort case trial, intervention trial. And they said, well, we think that the carnivore thing is kind of, it doesn't go with the USDA's, beef is part of a diet, and lean meat especially. So what they're saying is they're beholden to the USDA. And remember, the USDA is corporate captured, right? The USDA is basically bought and paid for by Nabisco and Pepsi and Kellogg's and all these companies that basically, these, multi-billion-dollar companies that basically fund the USDA. So they will do whatever. I mean, the whole dietary guidelines is a joke. I mean, it's all about supporting these corporations that feed us junk food. So they don't want to rock that boat, right? They don't want to, put out a study that would dissuade people from eating the rainbow of junk food, right? So this is a little bit of frustration there. And then David Ludwig out at Harvard is supposed to be doing an intervention trial on carnivore versus various autoimmune conditions. And I know the funding on that one, I think, is now also was called into question. I think Jordan Peterson was actually, I think, had got some donors together to help with that. And I know David is now on sabbatical in somewhere in Europe. I can't remember. I talk with David Ludwig from time to time. So anyway, that's the story on that. So hopefully, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I've got a pretty good, most people that are doing carnivore studies, I'm aware of it. They've reached out to me at some point. Sometimes I've helped them to organize that. So we'll have to see. All right. One Hope for All says, question, my friend had an irregular heartbeat. I'm telling him about the carnivore diet to fix that. What can I tell my friend to get him to believe me about carnivore diet being good for the hearts? Well, you're going to have to unbrainwash a lot of propaganda. I mean, there was this is a thing. You've got all this sort of, I guess I would call a huge sort of belief that LDL cholesterol is the main cause of of coronary artery disease. So there was a study that just was published like yesterday or day before in the New England Journal of Medicine. 1.5 million people, and they looked at, outcomes, risk factors for not only all-cause mortality, but also cardiovascular mortality. And what they found was the biggest thing that led to cardiovascular disease, the most powerful risk factor, which this corroborates several other studies now, was diabetes. Diabetes blows everything else out of the water, and this was followed by smoking, and then this was followed by uh, uh, blood pressure, and then finally, at the bottom of the barrel, once again, was LDL cholesterol, or not, more specifically, non-HDL cholesterol. So this is something that you have to first get them to understand that there's some nuance here and that sort of stuff. Now, if you go to carnivore.diet and type in heart disease or something like that, or heart arrhythmia, you can search for all the success stories. So maybe they might be inspired by seeing a success story or two. So, all right, let me go with another $20 question here. This is from Forks. Here's Forks from Washington, my neighbor here, Carnivore. Frangie is awesome. Keep it up. Knowing anything about minimal change disease. My husband was stricken, and yes, while carnivore, it's been a rough 8 months. I'm running a resort, Three Rivers in Forks. Minimal change disease. Gosh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was I'm trying to think if that's a glomerular renal disease, and I cannot say I've heard that at all in conjunction with carnivore. I don't know. Like I said, I know you've done carnivore and had pretty significant benefit. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was thyroid and weight and a number of other things. And I don't know what. It's stricken, yes, while carnivore. Um, it's been 8 months. I'm running a resort, so again, I don't know, unfortunately, too much about that. I can, if you come, I know you used to come to our meetings. If you'll come to one of our come to our carnivore diet meeting again, I can, see if I can do any kind of background into that. But it's not something I've unfortunately ran into with carnivore. It's something I haven't heard about since probably medical school, and that's been a long time for me. That was a long time ago when I was in medical school. So, unfortunately, but I'm glad you're doing well, and hopefully things are going. You're hanging in there. It's tough if Three Rivers and Forks. So I've got to get out there one day and check that out at some point if I get out on the Olympic Peninsula, which is, I believe, where you're at. So, all right, guys, let me go on to another question here. Okay, Ryan Unknown. Sorry. I see you, Houstonian. Go Astros. Are the Astros in I've not paid any attention to MLB, Major League Baseball. I guess that reminded me of somebody who's Al Michaels, a sportscaster, as you guys may have known, and the sports fan. He's been around forever, and he was a video just surfaced recent, and I've known this for several years, but he's never had a vegetable in his adult life anywhere, in any point in his life as far as he's concerned. He's never willingly eaten a vegetable, and he's now getting close to 80 years old. And he's still working, still pretty sharp, and so he's basically reached what the average life expectancy is in the U.S. and still going strong without vegetables. So at least there's one example of that. All right, this is Majestic Artemis. Hi from Australia. I was vegan once. Love your work. Even though I'm not a carnivore, I'm much more confident animal products consumer now with benefits. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. And again, I think that the suggestion or the implication that I think everybody needs to be carnivore and carnivore is the only way is a false. It's a straw man that people often will put out there. I think meat is wonderful. I think it's a great health food. I think it's insane to want to get rid of it, particularly from the population diet. And I think some people do great on carnivore. I think it's a great tool. Is it the only way to get healthy? No, there's other ways for sure. But I think it's a very powerful tool, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So, all right, how do I feel about Chilean what? I'm not sure what Chilean sea bass. I'm not sure what the question is. So sorry. Had a nice 14-ounce fatty strip loin bison steak for dinner. Oh, nice. Milton Bates, Minder, or Minder perhaps. I'm seeing more and more vegans quit veganism and joining the carnivore movement. How does it make you feel, Shawn? Well, I'm just glad to see more people getting healthy, and that it's not a my team versus their team. Honestly, I think the real challenge, the vegan, I call vegans useful idiots. And honestly, many of them are nice people. I've met some in real life, and they're fine, or at least they've been fine to me. I mean, online, people get a little, like anybody online, they're anonymous. They sort of say stupid stuff, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's really, and I think some of this vegan sort of talking points and ideology is convincing people, or trying to convince people, to remove meat from their diet, not to the benefit of anything, society, nature, animals, the climate. Really, it's only to the benefit of these ultra processed food companies, which want to prey upon us. And so they're kind of useful idiots for that. But I can't blame them. I mean, they've gotten brainwashed, particularly some of them get brainwashed at a very young age when they don't have enough, real world experience to sort of discern that stuff. And so I'm just glad people get healthy. That's really kind of it. All right. What else we got here? Okay, former vegetarian here. This is Dr. Iron Mom. Oh, okay. Cooking some filet mignon for my daughter and son-in-law. They just had a baby. Well, congrats. Awesome. Yeah, filets are pretty nice. The leaner cut for people that don't want as much fat, but it's a very, very absolutely one of the most tender cuts out there. Michelle Vera, can you please share the name of the doctor you interviewed who runs a nursing home in Arizona that is having great success with his parents? So he's not a doctor. His name is Hal Kramer. He is, you know, he was an airline. He was an Air Force pilot, and he went into healthcare, or not healthcare, but residential care. So he's not a physician. He has physicians that work with him. But so it's Hal Kramer, and he's based out of Phoenix, I believe. I'm not sure if he's in well, anyway, I can't remember exactly, in Phoenix Mesa or something like that, but somewhere in there. So Hal Kramer, and the interview that I did with him, another interview which I did with him, will be up in the next few days on our channel. Pat Rick says magnesium is a subject. It is a subject. Linda Straub, do you think the vegan diet could be the cause of the colon cancer epidemic in people under 50 that I'm reading about? I think it's probably just the ultra processed food in general. I think that's probably the more likely cause in my view. Meat is so expensive in Australia. Majestic Artemis. It's unfortunate. It certainly is. I had a nice discussion with Matthew Leshiak about fiat food and how we've sort of replaced real nutrition with absolute garbage food. Absolute garbage. And some people say it was to basically disguise the fact that we've inflated everything. We can't afford nutrition. We can afford food. It's like printing money. I mean, they're just printing crap food. It's like almost like a nonstop. You look at the store and it's filled with all this garbage. But real food, real high quality food is becoming less easy to acquire for many people. All right, we have one more $20 question here. The hotel developer, Carnivore 1 year, still having electrolyte issues and taking 16 grams of sodium chloride a day. Sleep disturbance from frequent urination, BUN 28, sodium 135. Working on reducing chronic stress. How do I improve this? Well, gosh, it's hard to say without, again, I'll just put this caveat out there. I don't know enough about you to speak fully intelligently. What I would say is, with sleep disturbance, frequent urination, one thing I find, and you'd be around 28, so, either, sodium 135, probably, that's sort of in a normal range, as I recall. BUN a little bit is that, what is a meal timing? If you're eating late in the evening, like I'm about to do now, which I generally don't do that often, but one of the things I find, particularly with sleep disturbance, is if you eat a big protein bolus late at night, let's say 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., maybe you go to bed 9, 10 o'clock, you're probably going to wake up to urinate because it's just something that is it's your body has to deal with protein, right? It has to deal with it. You can't, or more specifically, the nitrogen in protein, because the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen molecules that make up fat proteins and carbohydrates are easily converted, but nitrogen itself will accumulate in the form of ammonia. Ammonia is directly toxic to humans, and so we do produce a little bit of ammonia, but it is rapidly converted via something called the Cori cycle into um, urea, and the urea is then excreted through our breath, through our sweat, and then through our urine. And so that's something that I would work on, is just see what happens if you maybe just eat a lunch and don't eat a dinner, and play with that for a little bit. See how things are going on. 16 grams of sodium is quite a bit of sodium. I mean, that may be, maybe you're going too far in the other direction. Some people will see that, but I mean, um, but our serum electrolytes generally are pretty well, irrespective of the inputs, are generally pretty well preserved. Our body does a pretty good job of maintaining that within a normal range. Now, occasionally, you get severe hyponatremia, very low sodium, sodium down in the 120s, and that's often due to overhydration in many cases. Where you just, you see that people that just chug water all day long, and overhydrated, I guess, to that sort of thing. Sleep disturbance or frequent urination. So it sounds like maybe protein late at night. I'd check your glucose, make sure you're not a diabetic or anything like that. So those are some thoughts on that. All right, we got another $20 question here from the Carnivore Today folks again. I have a live stream on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time called Keto Cookout Live. We cut up, have fun, and have a few guests on each week. Would be honored to have Frank pop in for a bit. Oh my gosh. I'll think about that. I'm debating if I'll resurrect that character or not. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I'm like, okay, I need to get some girly clothes, and I go and I'm like, where am I gonna get a dress big enough because I'm 6'5", I'm a 250-pound man. And I went to Target, believe it or not, because well, Target's got a bunch of this kind of wokey type stuff. So I'll go in there, and I got a scarf, and they had dresses, like big ass dresses, which is sad that they've got dresses, double XL dresses that I fit in. Um, that's something, 30, 40 years ago, you probably would have to go to a specialty store to find, but now it's everywhere because you have so many, unfortunately, people that are suffering from so much obesity, both men and women. So I didn't have any trouble at all finding that, which is funny. Um, but yeah, that would, you know, I don't know if I could stay in character that long. No, that would be funny. I could, hello. Some people say it sounds a little bit like Julia Child, but anyway, we'll see. We'll see if I can. That's a funny idea. Maybe come in as a normal human at one point. So thanks for that, though. That gives me kind of a laugh idea. Gosh, what are we answering here? A bunch of questions here. David Burr, I'm about to start carnivore, but I love avocados. Can I still eat them? Well, you're technically not doing a carnivore diet at that point. But I mean, again, it depends on what your goals are, what you struggle with. Some people, that's fine. Some people would struggle with uh, with avocado for various reasons. Maybe it's the salicylates, maybe it's the fiber, maybe it's some of the other compounds that some people find irritating. I'm not going to say avocados are bad for everybody, but there is a number of people where that might be an issue. So try it and see. Just try it and see. I mean, that's what I always tell people. Try it and see. Take it in, take it out, and see what you do. I never liked avocados. I mean, I forced myself to eat them when I did keto. Um, but anyway, here's Anonymous that I bought 2 of your books. That's interesting because I've only written 1 book. So it's kind of funny. I mean, I've got, the book I wrote was called The Carnivore Diet. It's got a picture of a steak on the cover with a little bit of like salt and rosemary, and it's got my name, Shawn Baker MD. That's the only book I've ever written. Now, there's another book out there that's got my face on it. And it's like somebody wrote a book like taking quotes I made. And it's like, and it's a guy named I can't, maybe Stephen Baker or something like that. But it's kind of funny. But I didn't not give him permission to use my face. It's a total scam. But I just like I'm not doing anything about it. It's just like, should I go after it until I got it cease and desist? But I don't know if I can, you know. Uh, Tony Towels and Towel. Hi, Shawn Baker. Question: Can fatty liver give an LDL? Can fatty liver give LDL at 730 milligrams per deciliter? What can? I'm pretty slim. Thanks, by the way. I'll be in Biarritz next week. Oh, nice. Yeah, Biarritz is nice. Nice little city. I enjoyed that. Well, I mean, could fatty liver be associated with an LDL of 730? Yes. I mean, it could be. I don't know if that would like sort of cause you to have fatty liver. Um, I think that that very low level high LDL could be, you know, something called FH or familial hypercholesterolemia, but it could just be the fact that you're, you know, you said you're fairly lean, this sort of lean mass hyper-responder cohort, and so that is likely to be that as anything else, I'm guessing. What to do about it? That's really the question, right? What do I do about it? Do I leave it? There's some people that leave it and do fine, like David Unwin's wife, Jen Unwin. LDL cholesterol similar. I think it's 800 in hers. I've seen somebody with 1,000, and surprisingly, these people have very low cardiovascular disease burden. At least at the time, they don't. Now, what happens over the long term? People would debate about it. So, one thing I would just say is follow, you know, let's see what happens with the lean mass hyper-responder study, which will be published, or the data collection period will end in February, as Dave Feldman tells me that, and then it will be published, you know, they'll analyze the data and publish it probably a few months after that. So we'll have more information on that. I would say don't ignore it. I would say you probably want some, and I don't know how old you are, but if you're over 40, you probably want a CAC score, coronary artery calcium scan if you can get it. And I can't remember where you, if you're in Spain or whatever. I don't know if how easy it is to achieve, but I would look up guys like Ivor Cummins talking about coronary artery calcium scan, its utility. Listen to the podcast I just did with David Diamond on our Revero channel. That might be of help. All right, we got another one of these $20 questions from the Carnivore Cure. Okay. Hi, Shawn. It was great talking to you on Friday. I forgot to ask you one question, my friend. My friend wanted me to ask, were you stationed in Albuquerque? The answer is yes. If so, what years? I was there from 2006, right? 2006 to 2008, I think. Yeah, 2006 to 2008. He was there from 91 to 94. I think he remember you there. So I was never there in 91 to 94, unfortunately. I was there 2006 to 2008 after I got it back from, and then I spent some of that time in 2007, half of 2007, I spent deployed to Afghanistan. So that is when I'm there. So anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to go another 5 minutes. I'm going to have to shut it down. I got to get food cooked up for the family and myself. It's been wonderful talking to you guys. Have a great Saturday evening. It's about 7:15 here, so I got to get our party started at the house. We'll crank up some music, cook up some steaks, and have a nice Saturday. So you guys hopefully have a good time. Have a good evening yourself. Thanks for being here. Neck bridges saved my life during my wrestling year. Yeah, I need to get back to doing that. I used to do those, you know, neck bridges with, you know, and lift, you know, doing bench presses and different things while doing that. So I need to get back to doing that. All right, so we got one more $5 question or $4.99 question from Thomas Tree. I'm a lean 25-year-old when I'm on carnivore. My wrists are hurting. Began about 3 weeks ago, primarily ribeye. Anything I should supplement with? You know, generally, I don't really, I'm not really a big advocate of supplements. I just can't, uh, unless there's a known deficiency, you know, why the wrists are hurting, there could be a few things going on. It could be that, sometimes going into ketosis can lead to sort of, uh, well, so when you have, if you like, see if you're in ketosis, that'd be my first question for you, because you might be. Ketones, particularly early on, they tend to get high, and because you're not very efficient at utilizing 3 weeks in is kind of early on, and so a lot of weird things happen. And so when we're producing a lot of ketones, we have a lot of ketones circulating, we eliminate a lot of them, and they go through our kidneys. So what happens is we have a high burden of ketones that our kidneys are seeing, it sometimes interferes with excretion of other things. Like one thing is particular is uric acid. So some people will develop sort of gout-like symptoms, which could present as wrist pain. It could be this phenomenon known as oxalate dumping, or this shift in oxalates. If you had a high oxalate rich diet and now you're not consuming it anymore, so now you have this concentration diffusion gradient where the oxalates were perhaps crystallized and now they're falling out of crystal and depositing in other tissues. So those are some things I would think about. Most likely, they'll probably go away with time. But those are two of the things I would consider, right now. So I can't think of a particular supplement. I mean, there are, look up oxalate, and there are a couple supplements that people will do that may potentially benefit that. But I mean, I would just, see if you're in ketosis or not. That may be something you could check. And if you're not eating much and you're losing weight and you're higher fat, you probably are in ketosis. Maybe see what happens if eat a little more food or eat a little more protein or even perhaps add a few carbohydrates and see if that pain goes away. That would probably associated with ketosis. If it's oxalates, and you might add a few oxalate containing compounds in there, and that would sort of change that diffusion gradient. So those are some thoughts. All right, guys, I got to go. You guys have a great evening. I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these soon. So everybody take care. Bye-bye, everybody.